religion of the oppressor. The religion is white supremacy, because if it was Christianity, the churches that we see today would not be the most segregated places in the planet. Church is the most segregated place in the world. You have black churches and you have white churches. If you're a Christian, there should not be a black church and a white church. There should just be a church. So if we have white churches and black churches, the reason why we have a black church is because we have a white church, and we have a white church because we have white supremacy. So white supremacy must be the real religion.
1822, when Champollion deciphered hieroglyphics, it made it possible for the first time in about 1,300 years that people could now go into Kemet and read the writings, the Medu-Neter, on the temples and on the papyri. And once they began to read that writing, they began to understand that everything that they had been teaching Christianity is a lie, and based on African concepts that had been created thousands of years earlier.
Okay, this is the one Corey was interested in, I guess.
All right.
Just
No, this is big right now, though, so I'm glad we're talking about it, because this is
taking in all
the
heavy
logic of
topics,
this. The logic of this is interesting, because the logic is basically, basically equating Christianity with a white man's religion, a white man's faith. And I mean, you can just to me, that's just false. When you trace the history, you trace the history of Christianity. It's a Middle Eastern religion. Our God is a Jew. You know, the God we worship, Jesus Christ, he's a Jew.
Yeah.
He's Middle Eastern. You know, he's dark-skinned.
Yeah.
You know, and
one of the first non-Jewish converts was an Ethiopian eunuch. Anyone ever been to Ethiopia before?
Right. I mean,
Pretty
pretty
dark.
One of the first earliest churches was in Egypt. You know,
I mean,
Armenia's
Armenia's on the news right now. Armenia had a big role in church history as one of the first Christian nations. Was Armenia. And you know, this is, and then, you know, it went from the Middle East to Africa to Spain. Paul's final destination before he passed was Spain. He took it to Spain. Asia is the one where it took longer. Getting to the Chinese and getting to Asia, but you trace the past 2,000 years of history, and Christianity has pretty much spread to every corner of the earth. Not every, but you know, most nationalities, cultures, skin colors, races, whatever you want to say. So to say that Christianity is a tribal white man's religion shows total ignorance to the past 2,000 years of history. And not only that, it's an insult to Black American culture that had so much goodness that was produced based upon their Christian expression of faith, the gospel music of Black African Americans. And so you're telling them, this guy is saying, oh, you are ignorant, stupid dummies for believing that white man's religion. But what's your alternative? What's your alternative, guy? Like, what? I mean, you're going to tell all of these African Americans that receive so much hope and so much community and so much love and faith to endure their hard times, their slavery, their oppression. It was their Christian faith that got them through that, and it produced so much amazing popular culture, the gospel music, and so much amazing culture came from that Christian faith and expression of faith. So you're just gonna sweep that away and say, "Oh, they were deceived. That was stupid. That was, you know, like, okay, like it's, you know." And my whole thing going back to an argument like that is like, well, what's your alternative? What can you offer in replace of Christianity, the white man's faith, that's going to produce better fruit than what the gospel has produced in 2,000 years? What's your alternative? So you're telling me to get rid of this because I'm dumb and I bought into a white man's conspiracy, and so, but what are you offering me in return? That's the question that I have for these guys. Well, okay, if I chose to believe you, what are you offering? In return, that's better. That's going to be better.
I think, and I think though, and a couple things that he said also is, which is easily reconcilable, is he said, what about these cultures in Africa that have a Genesis story? But Africa is not the only place. You go to Mexico, they have a Genesis story. You go to Russia, they have a Genesis story. You go to Asia, they have a Genesis story. They all have dragons. They all have, I mean, globally, we have common themes as each other because we all came from these two people named Adam and Eve, you know? Right, you know, and then as history progressed, then we all came from this one person named Noah and his family. You know, if you're going to take biblical themes and concepts, right? Like, because they're trying to agree with some of this. They're just trying to say that, like, I guess an African folklore or any other culture, because it exists, it must precede the Bible's account. Well, not necessarily, because...
Or the Bible was plagiarizing off of, like, these pagan
But
myths.
none of those cultures have anything in writing. The Bible still stands as some of the oldest literatures, especially since we found the Dead Sea Scrolls. Some of the oldest literatures that exist, there is more proof of our current Bible being factual than there is that Caesar or Abraham Lincoln ever existed. None of us
you have
even
to
ever
toss
questioned
every ancient historical document. If you toss the validity of the Bible,
if you take
as
how
history,
many,
you have to take out everything. No other ancient document of history has as much proof, as much validity, you know, as the Bible.
Yeah. And it all cross-references each other. And all the different manuscripts that we have found over thousands of years, they reconcile with each other, besides very minute things at times. But everything reconciles, word for word with each other. So you're talking about...
The main message is the same. The main message, like there may be disagreements of numbers, numerologies, you know, the way a certain town is spelled or whatever. But the main message of the Old and New Testament, when you take all the manuscripts and you put it all together, there is no difference with the main message. The main message is always the same.
Yeah.